I read 7 historical fiction books in 2025, so let's rank them in order from my least favorite to my most favorite. But let me tell you a secret, every single book is at least 4.5 stars or above. Hi, I'm Lacey, I love to read. Thanks for coming to my channel. I just did a ranking every thriller I read in 2025, so go watch that there. And then come back to this video where I rank every single historical fiction book I read in 2025. Okay, I'm popping in here really quick just to talk about my book club that I'm starting. So if you click the link in my YouTube channel, I'm starting a book club called the Bringing Joy Book Club, and I'm so excited. It's gonna flip-flop from genres. My plan is to announce the book on the 27th. Book club starts on the 1st and will go until the end of the month. There will be weekly prompts so we can talk about the books. There'll be a members chat. There's going to be an intro video and an ending review and recap about the book, and also one craft each month that is related to either the book or that genre or reading. So I'm super excited. This month is going to be Anatomy of an Alibi by Ashley Elston. It is 347 pages. It's a thriller, and it's about 2 girls who switch lives, and in the process, one of their husbands is murdered and they have to figure out who did it and who is involved. I'm so excited. That's all I have, but I'm excited and I hope to see you there. Unfortunately, I did only read 7 historical fiction books in 2025, so that's all we have to rank for today, but I did love every single one of them. Like I said, the lowest rating was 4.5 stars, so really this video is just to tell you about the amazing historical fiction books I read last year, so feel free to treat it like a recommendation video, because that's basically what it is. We're first going to start with number 7, which is The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. This book is 454 pages. I rate it 4.5 stars, and it follows Elsa. And Elsa was at the age where she was too old to marry, and the Great War was over. It was a time of abundance, and in hopes to change her reputation, she meets Rolf, and she ends up having to marry him when she barely knows him. Fast forward 13 years, they have multiple children, and now it's a time of drought, and so they live in the Great Plains, and they have to decide if they want to stay and hope that the drought ends, or if they should move to California and see if there's better opportunity there. So this just follows Elsa's life and her choice to do what's best for her family and herself. This book I thought was really slow at the beginning, so like the pacing did take a while to get into, and I did think it was a little more on the less intriguing situation, because a drought is honestly not a super exciting thing to read about because it is just very bleak and the same thing over and over. But I did find that when she made a decision of what to do, which was best for her family, it sped up a lot more and I felt a lot more engaged in the book. I would say like the final third was so good and it was so impactful, but the first third was very slow, and then the second one was finally kind of gaining traction. So that's why it's more of a 4.5, and it's my least favorite that I read last year. But like I said, I really did enjoy it, and I did enjoy the story, just with those little minor tweaks that made it go down from a higher ranking. And then for number 6, I have The Frozen River by Ariel Lawhon. This book was 432 pages. I rated it 4.5 stars. And this book I really actually enjoyed a lot as well. Like I'm saying, I have not really a lot of bad things to say about any of these books. This book was similar in pacing that was kind of challenging. So this book follows Martha, and Martha is a midwife in a small town that is along a river. At the same time of Martha doing her job as a midwife, there is a murder that is discovered when a man is found frozen in the river. The reason it ties Martha into this, not only is she a midwife, she also was called to do an autopsy, and of course a male doctor came in and took over. However, this man is connected to a rape trial that was about to start. So it's a very intertwined story. The pacing was a little hard because although there is this murder mystery in it, there's also a lot of her being a midwife, which is kind of clunky because every story is a little different, and so it takes a bit of time to understand all of her stories of being a midwife and then tying it all together with the situation of this rape trial and the murder. Overall, I really did enjoy it. I didn't find it necessarily slow, I just think it was clunky, and so I felt less inclined to pick it up at times because each section kind of started over and you felt like you were kind of in this new scenario, so it's almost like you're starting kind of like a new book. But overall, the story was so impactful. I really loved reading about Martha. It was really cool to learn that she is a real woman and that this book is based off of, which is awesome. And that's kind of like a common theme this year is I read a lot of books that were based on a real woman. Oh, and one from 2026 that I'm meshing together in my head from last year. I did really enjoy this book. It's ranked 6. It's still an amazing book. I really did enjoy the writing style. Just love the other books more. So that's my number 6. And then number 5 is Lady Tan's Circle of Women by Lisa C. This book is 352 pages. I rated it 4.75 stars. And this book follows Yun Shun. And she is honestly taking us through her entire life. And again, based on a real woman in history who was a big part of women's health and women's care with Chinese medicine. This was so cool. It went through all the phases that a woman goes through. So like from when she was a child to an adolescent, to a teenager, to a grown woman. It was really, really cool to see. The biggest thing for me that kind of took me longer to get into was the pacing. Once again, it just was very slow in the beginning, and I feel like you were taking in a lot of information that it just did not flow as easily as the second half of this book. Once I got to the parts about her really practicing Chinese medicine and really stepping into her own when she moved to her husband's household, I will say, I think also because this book followed so many huge life changes for Yun Shun, I feel like as a reader, change is hard in general. And then so as a reader, it felt like every time we had this new change, it was like, okay, I'm getting back into it and I'm understanding it now. And obviously like there was parts of it that were really hard and her life was really hard. There was times where she had no community, and I just really loved how it ended up in the end. And I thought it was just such a beautiful story of womanhood and how different women experience life and experience health. And it was just such a cool read. I feel like I bring up a lot of stuff I read in this book, which was really cool. And I definitely am really grateful that I read it, and I love the cover, and it's my number 5. And we are on to number 4, which is The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. I've talked about this book a lot. I've read it twice. The reread was in 2025. And this book is 213 pages. I rated it 5 stars. It's number 4. The next 4 books are all 5-star ratings. Love them all. I think I knew what to expect, and so I took in a lot of more nuanced details that I feel like I probably missed the first time around. And so this book is about Elwood Curtis. He is a young black boy. He is wrongfully sentenced and sent to a juvenile detention facility called the Nickel Academy. And of course, there is so many secrets and so many hidden horrors that are happening at this place for young boys. It's based upon a real reformatory, which I think is really interesting because I love to get history of different facilities that children and disabled and people who were sent places that they didn't deserve to go, and how we can prevent that and just be informed about where this came from and what has happened in the past, and to really try and not let that keep happening in the future, which is really unfortunate because the more I read books like this, the more I see huge aspects of those things or those facilities still being used today, which is really heartbreaking. And this book itself was very heartbreaking. I love that we got to see and kind of understand Elwood's story without anything being sugar-coated and anything being kind of like more palatable. It was very clear the disgusting things that were happening and how horribly these boys were treated. And I think that's really important to read, even though it's hard to read that and to know that people are treated and have been treated like that. I just don't have enough good things to say about how Colson Whitehead writes and how captivating of a story he can write and how important what he tells is and how much of this history is not told in schools. So I just love this book. I love his writing. I think it's really important to seek out books like this, and this is definitely not the last time I read a book by Colson Whitehead, but I will just never forget Elwood's story, and it's gonna stick with me for a long time, and it already has, and I've already read it twice. So it's number 4 for 2025. And for number 3, we have The Berry Pickers by Amanda Peters. This book was 304 pages. I rated it 5 stars, and this book follows 2 different people who spent time in Maine. So one of them is named Joe, and Joe is a part of an indigenous family that every year during summer would go down to Maine from Nova Scotia, and they would pick berries, and that would be their career for the summer. One summer, Joe's little sister Ruthie goes missing, and he was the last one to see her, and so it just kind of unravels Joe's life, his family's history, and where he is now. And on the other hand, you have a different perspective named Norma, and you follow Norma's life, and she is growing up in Maine and keeps having these very vivid dreams and is trying to figure out kind of her life and her family dynamic. What a beautiful, easy to ingest story that I felt like grabs you from the first page and keeps it interesting with the 2 different perspectives. And it's kind of crazy, like where there is overlap, where there's differences, what Joe and his family have gone through, what Norma's life was growing up with her parents that she could never really understand. And I just think it's not for the faint of heart. There's a lot of intense things that happen in this book, but I just will never forget this book, and this family and both of these characters really stick with me, and I still think about it like almost like I knew these people, and obviously I don't know them, but I feel that way, and I love a book that makes you feel like it's real, and that's how I felt with this book. Starting with number 2 is The Henna Artist by Alka Joshi. This book was 384 pages. I rated it 5 stars. This book follows Lakshmi, and Lakshmi is leaving an abusive marriage, and she goes to Jaipur and ends up becoming a henna artist, and she works her way up and kind of builds these connections to be a henna artist for the elite. She has to make sure that she doesn't kind of get like sucked into the drama and the gossip and all this stuff that comes with the upper class. At the same time, her abusive husband shows up in her life again right when she's doing really well. She's about to build this beautiful house and she's doing so well for herself. He drops the news that she has a sister and it is now her responsibility to take care of her. A sister she had no idea about and now is not only building her business and building this new life for herself, but also balancing kind of being a mother figure and a sister that she didn't really know, a role she was going to be stepping into. So beautiful. I loved the audiobook. The audiobook was so well done. This book just felt like such a beautiful story of the expectations that women go through and just this standard that women are held to culturally, especially in their culture, and like being proper and being what is expected and kind of like changing your own life and doing what's best for yourself, even if it goes against the grain. And I just really loved Lakshmi's story. I loved the characters. Once again, I feel like I knew these people and I was just so obsessed with this book start to finish. Okay, and then last but certainly not least is a book that I think I've already found like every opportunity to talk about, and I only read it in December, but my favorite historical fiction of 2025 was Looking for Jane by Heather Marshall. This book was 385 pages. I rated it 5 stars. I could rate it more if I had a higher number. I would absolutely rate this like 1,000,000 stars if I could. This book was so impactful. It was such an important story. It was such a engaging and empowering book, and I got sucked in. I read it in one day. I couldn't stop reading. I needed to get to the bottom of these people's stories and to see how they intertwined. This book was so good. It was so beautifully written. It was so easy to get into. I don't have anything but positive things to say about this book. It is a beautiful story of womanhood and the choice to become or not become a mother, to support other women, to do what feels morally right to yourself, and I just loved it so much. It felt like the book that I needed to read. I can't wait to read more Heather Marshall. But we are following 3 different storylines. We are following Angela's story, where Angela gets a letter that was meant to be sent to the old neighbor upstairs, and she read it and so much was unveiled in that letter that got lost. At the same time, you were learning about Evelyn's story, and Evelyn is a doctor who is working for the Jane Network to provide safe and accessible abortions when they were legal for women who needed it. At the same time, you are reading Nancy's story, and she ends up having all these changes to her life that causes her to end up meeting Evelyn and working for Evelyn. Overall, this book is just so beautifully done. The stories are intertwined in such an important and impactful and engaging way that I just couldn't stop reading. I couldn't stop learning about what these people were doing and how their lives were unfolding. I love every character in this book. I love how layered everyone's story was and how different people can feel about different things but still have a common goal of like supporting women's choice. I loved it so much. This book is amazing. I think this book should be read by everyone. I recommend it to everyone. I want to reread it, but I have so many other books to read. All I know is I'm so grateful I picked it up, and it is going to go down as my favorite of 2025, and I am never going to forget it. And those are all the historical fiction books I read in 2025. I read some really great books, and I think that you really can't go wrong with reading any of them. I just love them all so much. It was so fun to talk about them. But thank you so much for being here and for watching my video and coming to my channel. I really appreciate your support and your engagement with my videos. I love talking about books and book recommendations and things that you love about reading in the comments below. Let me know what else you'd like to see from me, and I hope that the books that you read bring you joy.